Chapter 1 sets the rules, Chapter 2 bends the rules, but in the finale, forget the rules. Let's talk about Scream 3.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are back, the Eye of the Storm podcast. As you can see, it's only two of us today. So, Daniel, can you please let the people know what we will be discussing or debating about?
So this is Have You Seen, in which we talk about a movie that some of us know well and others have just seen for the first time. In recent weeks, we've talked about Scream 1 and 2, so now we are on to the third and final chapter of the original Scream trilogy, which I've seen a couple of times and you just saw for the first time, right? So what were your impressions for Scream 3?
I had the same feeling about this film with all the other ones that I've seen. The film was good, but not a memorable watch. Which is not bad. Like I said, it's just a popcorn movie. But I feel like it's a traditional popcorn movie, if you want me to be honest. This one would probably be second on my list out of the ones that I've seen so far. Because I've seen the later Scream films, and I saw old ones way back in the day, I just couldn't remember. This one, I don't think I've seen. It felt more mature than all the other movies that I've seen, all the other Scream movies. I think out of all, even like the most recent film, the most recent Scream movie, Scream 3 felt more mature than that one. So I enjoyed that aspect. It didn't feel too ridiculous, especially when it came to the kills. However, I did have an issue with Ghostface's storyline, as in like the ending.
And I'm sure we'll get to that. That's definitely a big part of the movie.
Yeah, I will definitely get to that. But it is interesting as well. That people obviously regarded this as one of the worst Scream movies in the franchise, which I don't think so. And I think the reason why they're saying that is because of the ending. But like you said, we'll get to that. But all in all, this was a good film. I liked the way how the movie follows the script, like literally, in terms of like each person dies in order of the script in the movie. So it felt like the production aspects of things was literally on display, and they were like following like the production of an actual movie. So I enjoyed that aspect. And Sidney's character arc as well, which is something which made sense from obviously Scream 1 to Scream 3. It's something which I liked, like her introduction, how she was like secluded from the world, helping others. Like I think she was working as like a helpline or something like that. I don't know if it was for other women. Was it for other women or for both?
I don't know what the proper term is, but like for victims of domestic violence.
Yeah. So her character pretty much, followed with like it was consistent, like in terms of her having kind of like that. She always had that strong. She was always a strong woman. She always had that about her. Even when she was scared, she was still strong. And I just liked how they were consistent with that, all from 1 to 3. So all in all, it was an experience I was expecting.
So you said it's the second best Scream movie of the ones you've seen, right?
Out of all of the Scream movies that I've seen, because the ones that I remember, the ones with Jenna Ortega, and I think she was in Scream. Is it 7 that's been out in total?
I think we're up to 6.
Up to 6. Okay, so I think she was in 5 and 6. So I've seen those are the two ones that I remember. So I might put Scream 3 number 3. I might put it number 3. Number 3.
That's what I was getting at. What's number 1 and 2 then?
Number 1 would have to be the first one, because I think that's just a classic. I'd say that's a classic. So Scream 1 would be, so that would be number 1. Number 2 would be so it's one of the Ortega movies. When I say one of them, because she was in 5 and 6. So I think, and 6 I really enjoyed. I remember when I left the cinema, so I'd probably put 6 in number 2.
All right, so let's dive into it. What did you think of the opening? So Scream openings are famous, right? They start with a phone call and end with somebody stabbed, right? And this one kind of flips the script a little bit, right? In the hook, I said chapter 1 makes the rules, chapter 2 bends the rules, and in the final chapter, all the rules are out the window, right? So that's the basic rules for trilogies, right? And that's what this movie is all about, right? This is not just the third one. This is the final chapter in a trilogy, which I think is a difference. And this movie basically says that like all the rules that you're used to are just thrown out, right? We don't have 2 killers anymore. We are now set in Hollywood, right? So it's no longer as personal as it was before. Like before it was like in a high school and then at university. And now we are in the world of adults, right? Where it's like set essentially during the production of one of the stab movies. And now Ghostface is not just one killer, but he can also mimic other people's voices, which wasn't the case before, right? So we've thrown out a whole bunch of different rules, right? And that we have come to expect from the first two movies. And in the opening sequence, we're kind of shown this, right? Like this, that we're following a familiar template, but all the rules have been changed, right? So this is previously the first victims were all women, and they were all alone, and they got this phone call where Ghostface taunts them and ends up killing them while they're alone in their house or wherever, right? And here, Cotton gets the call, and he is not the one who's being killed, when he's being stalked, right? So what do you think of that opening sequence?
I think the shock value. It was a shock value because, and the reason I say that is because, what's the name that who got Cotton?
Cotton, yeah.
Cotton, yeah. So he's like, I felt like he's an important figure in the franchise, and he had potential. Well, to me, he had potential of potentially being Ghostface one day. So the fact that they killed him off, I think, was necessary, and the way that they killed him off, like, it was an introduction to the new, like, pretty much to the new elements and the new side of Ghostface and the Scream franchise, which was good. I think it was needed because it's like, okay, we're on the third one, like, what's new? Do you know what I'm saying? And it's hard to kind of like, I think it's a question. Do you think it's hard to do new things with the Scream franchise, especially like Ghostface? Because that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's not easy. So I think them doing that in the third one was right in time, and it was needed. And it was, and the fact that they did it the way that they did was, I wouldn't say it was genius, but it was bright, in my opinion.
I think it definitely fits in this one. Yeah. I don't know. I think you can. I think generally, like, Scream seems to have lost its way a little bit, where it's not as focused on kind of deconstructing or playing with the tropes of horror as it exists at the time. It seems like I've not seen 4, 5, and 6, but like how people talk about it, it does not seem to be about that anymore. And I think this one,
it's more about, I would say, it's more about personal vendetta now than anything. But it has to be evolution though. So is that something which you have an issue with? Because I necessarily don't have an issue with that. I think, you know, there has to be evolution, and this thing where it's like there's so much playing on, like, you know, the whole film industry and like horror movies that you can do. Of course, you can do many things, but it will get to the point where it's like, okay, like we get it. Like, what else? I personally don't have an issue with, you know, them moving from playing on like the whole horror film genre to personal vendettas that each Ghostface has.
So I mean, this whole thing about commenting on what horror is like is something that's pretty unique to Scream. Like the idea of making a horror movie that is aware of other horror movies, at least in how the story is told, and like from the writer's perspective. Like, not a lot of horror franchises do this, right? They tend to either create or imitate those tropes, but they don't tend to play with them or comment on them very much. And my view is that Scream, the Scream formula, I think, can stay fresh forever because it's responding to something that's changing, right? So horror keeps changing. Like, we keep making different kinds of horror, that sort of thing. And if you just keep commenting on that, then you're doing something different every couple of years, right?
That's a good point.
And so I don't see a need to move on from that because it'll take a different form every time anyway, right? And I kind of want to see kind of something deal with like the torture porn genre from the 2000s, or this like very self-important elevated horror genre that we have at the moment. That is about big ideas or big introspective topics. And having like I don't know if one of the later Scream movies have done that. Like, every time I ask somebody who's seen them, they can't give me examples. So maybe I'm missing out on something. But I don't know. It doesn't, like, Scream doesn't seem to be interested in doing that anymore. And I think that's something that's missing, right? Like, the reason Scream felt so fresh back in the mid-90s was that it was kind of breathing new life into something that had become stale. And if anything has become stale, it's like low-budget horror right now, right? Because it keeps working, but that's mostly because the threshold for success is so low, right? You just need to make 20 million somehow, and that's a success. And a lot of people will show up to that, but a lot of these horrors are pretty bad. Like, they're just Like if I see one more highly telegraphed jump scare in a Blumhouse movie, I'm gonna jump out of a window, right? Like
You hate jump scares.
Like I hate jump scares in general, but like in something like in an Insidious movie, they're really like really obvious, right?
Oh, you didn't like Insidious? I thought that was a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, like let's, without going too far off topic, but like
Yeah.
there are certain like in any era, there's like certain ideas that have really overstayed their welcome because they work, and so they turn into they work once and they're fresh, so they get imitated, and it works for a while, and then after a while it necessarily becomes stale, right? And I think there's some things that are like that, and like you need something like a Scream movie. Like if Scream is not going to do it, then I want something else to do it, and kind of inject some life into that and play with that, rather than just like move on to the next thing. Like if something moves on to the next thing, that's great, but something that kind of plays with those ideas in a kind of deliberate and conscious way, like, could be cool. And like that's kind of one of the things I like about the original Scream trilogy. Aside, like there's a long list of things I like about them, but like that's one of them.
Okay, but do you think that's something people actually care about? And the reason why I say that, right, is because I think Scream has to be the most successful slasher.
I don't know.
Out of all slashers, I don't. In terms of what is consistent,
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to box office sales. So I don't know. Maybe I have to do some research on that, but it's one of the, let's say, one of the most successful slashers of all time. So, and I think the latest one, number 6, I think it's 6. I think it did like good numbers in the box office sales. So, do you think that's something which is happening due to obviously the fact that it's a Scream movie, so it's IP, the past movies, or is it a thing where people have kind of like, they don't care necessarily about obviously the original formula? Now they're just more interested in. It's not even that they're more interested in, it's just that they just love Scream, and they, you know what I'm saying, they like the current formula now. Like they don't even realize that the old formula's gone.
I don't know. I don't know. What the discourse around it is. Like the Scream movies are not really making it obvious to me. Like if that's what they were doing, that should be like in the marketing probably. And they don't seem to lead with that really. It seems to be more about things like it seems to be about the kids, and it's about the mystery of who Ghostface is. Yeah, and those are like at least who Ghostface is has never been really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think that's where the split in opinion is, because I think there's a group of people that actually do care in terms of like the mystery behind Ghostface and who is it this time, and then obviously there's other people who care about obviously what you're saying in terms of, okay, how are they going to play on the whole horror movie, like on horror movies this time? So yeah.
But the reason I say that I don't care who Ghostface is, it's because it's not a proper mystery. Like there aren't clues that you can piece together, and it's a game of, can you figure this out before the big reveal, right? It's deliberately disconnected from like the reveal and the motivation of Ghostface, at least in this trilogy, is always completely disconnected from the movie itself, right? And that allows us like we can segue into what it's like in this movie, right? Because in this movie, it turns out that Sidney has a secret half-brother she's never even known about, and he's been behind it the entire time. His motivation is again like family and revenge, right? And that character barely appears in the movie. Even having seen it multiple times, I did not pick up on any clues that he has like a personal connection to Sidney. And reading up on this movie, I think Neve Campbell, there were scheduling issues, and so that's why she's not in it very much. And that is why the movie mostly follows Gail and Dewey and others trying to piece together this mystery because they were available, right? And otherwise, the movie would have been more about Sidney. And that is why there is not really much interaction between Sidney and Roman. I think there would have been ways to work around this if the intention had been to seed some clues that you can figure out. I don't think there's anything there. He's just a director who's worried about his career and about losing his movie. And then suddenly he's the slighted relative, right? And my interpretation on all of this, I don't know what like Wes Craven's intention was with this, but my interpretation is that it's all a joke, that it's not supposed to be a mystery. You're not supposed to figure it out. It's not supposed to mean anything. It's supposed to be a joke about like villain motivations. Like maybe that is just my reading of it, but you have 3 movies in which you have completely different killers every time, and they have essentially random motivations, right? Those motivations don't tie into like how they kill or who they kill, or like even in the very first movie, it's not simply somebody's trying to kill Sidney, right? Like it takes quite a while because she's actually in danger. It's random other teenagers, right? And that pattern is repeated. Like I couldn't tell you why Cotton's girlfriend is on the hit list. There's something about he's killing through the stab movies to make a point, but I think it's just there so that.
But wasn't there ever collateral damage in the Scream movies?
But collateral damage means, I think they actually misused the term in this movie, I think, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure if that's in this movie. But collateral damage means, like, if you want to kill somebody, so you throw a bomb into the room, and it also kills 2 other people while you're killing your target. That's collateral damage. Collateral damage is not doing random stuff, right? So, like, if somebody's trying to kill Sidney and other people get in the way and so they get hurt, that's collateral damage. But that's not what happens, right? Like, in what way was, like, Cotton's girlfriend or any of the other, like that actress that thinks she's meeting the director?
Yeah.
Like, I don't see the connection, right? And I think it's just to fill the movie with kills until we get to the reveal. And I think it's making fun of the idea of the villain motivation, where we expect it to be something coherent and profound and personal, and in the end it isn't. Like it's interchangeable, it's disposable. And I don't know if that's the consensus view. I don't know if that's what Wes Craven was going for. But we've had this 3 times now, right? Like, and even the family motivations are basically like parodies of that. Like Hollywood generally is really in love with the family connection, right? And you might say that's because that's a town that runs on nepotism or whatever, and so it feels natural to anybody who's part of that. But like we see this over and over again in movies where people think who your parents are or who you're connected to is the most important, like defines you and is the most important thing about you. And like we feel like the worst of this was in the Star Wars sequels, right? Where we do this like 3 or 4 times where we change who the protagonist is related to, and it's supposed to be profound and meaningful each time, and it doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
But like that, like without relitigating those movies again, it's like it's like Hollywood just thinks this way, right? They think that who you're related to and who you're connected to defines you, and I think that makes sense if you're in that business and in that environment. But I think this movie is kind of making fun of that, because there is no meaning associated with Roman being Sidney's half-brother. Right?
I feel like you're being too nice. I feel like the opinion that you're being too nice in the film, because I honestly believe that it was just what you just said in terms of who they're related to is so profound. It's like a profound moment or a shock value type of moment. Because even when that happened, I'm not against stuff like that. I actually do like the whole, being related to someone and how it could be a profound moment or shock, shock value moment. I actually do like stuff like that. However, this one didn't make sense. And the reason why it didn't make sense is because they hardly had any encounters. Like, if there was meaningful encounters, then I would have had more emotionally, I would have been more emotionally invested in Ghostface itself, and especially when he revealed himself. Of course, throughout, it's hard to be emotionally invested in Ghostface when you don't know who he is until the end. However, when I found out who he was at the end, it was like, I was like, okay, so like my emotional investment just went all the way down when it comes to Ghostface, and when it comes to the whole revelation, because I was like, this is pretty, like, where were you, number one? And I don't even think they even had him. Like, I think one encounter was when she saw him in the director's office or the CEO or producer or something like that, where she passed him. So I think that's probably one time. I don't know if they just had one encounter, maybe they had other encounters, but I didn't realize. So I didn't understand. So I honestly don't think it was a thing where he was, I don't know, I could be wrong. That's why I say I felt like you're just, I'm saying, you're stretching your hand and trying to pick up the movie, because I just find it so hard to believe that this guy, because if it is true that he's doing what you said he's doing, then he's some sort of filmmaking genius or god. But I don't believe so. I think this guy just, he's not even, he just messed up. I wouldn't even say it's lazy writing. He just thought, okay, this is a good moment. I having a brother because his mom is, a hoe.
I don't think it's lazy writing. I think it's satire. I think it's taking this idea that keeps cropping up in movies and showing just how stupid it is by doing it in such an extreme way and pretending that it's the most profound thing ever.
Well, you'd give hints though. I don't think there was hints of that in this film.
That's the point, that it just comes out of nowhere. And it's not just the family connection, it's also this villain you've never even met or heard of appears in the last 15 minutes of the movie, and he was behind everything that's happened in this trilogy, right? Which also is like something that bad Hollywood movies will do, right? Where they will have this reveal that doesn't make any sense in hindsight, but it's supposed to feel profound in the moment. You're supposed to say, oh, there's this big twist, I didn't see that coming, as if that's good. I mean, in my view, a good twist is supposed to surprise you in the moment, and it's supposed to be obvious in hindsight, right? So when you watch it again, it's supposed to be obvious, right? And the big one is early Game of Thrones. A lot of the big shocking twists, like Ned dying, like the Red Wedding, and
legendary moment,
Drogo dying, like all of these are shocking in the moment when you see it for the first time, and when you watch it again, these are things that kind of there's build up to it, and there's foreshadowing, and you can see pieces moving into position, and when you watch it for the second, third, fourth time, it becomes increasingly obvious that this had to happen. And this is not the case with Scream, right? Like the identity of Ghostface is arbitrary, right? They just pick somebody, and their motivation is kind of, they also pick it out of a hat, right? And if you do that 3 times in a row, at some point, like that's a pattern, right? And
but you think they did it 3 times in a row? The first one?
I think it's the case with all 3.
I don't think they did it for the first one. I don't even remember who the second Ghostface killer was in terms of the second movie. But the first one, I don't think so. I think there was
the first one. It's the boyfriend.
I know who's the boyfriend.
Father had an affair with Sidney's mother. Yeah, and that destroyed his family, and now he's taking revenge on Sidney. But that is not. I think that is a little bit foreshadowed. I think they talk about like his parents separating or something. Like Sidney's parents are separated, right? Not separated but the mother died, right? Yeah. But I think there's a line about his parents also being separated or something. I'm not sure now. There's either no foreshadowing or a little bit of foreshadowing. I'm not sure now. But like Stu's mother in the second movie comes out of nowhere, right? It's just a reveal, right? And like I think it's the same thing over again, right? Where we are kind of presented with this nonsensical villain that comes out of nowhere and has a big speech about how profound their motive is. And this time, Sidney calls bullshit on it, right? Yeah. She says something like, can you just shut up for a minute? The only reason you're killing people is because you chose to do it. Can you just like own your actions for once, right? And I think that is the punchline to the entire trilogy.
I see.
Because she did not say this in the first 2 movies. In the third one, she's grown enough and is at a point where she sees through the nonsense and calls out the bullshit. And that is kind of what the big confrontation between Roman and Sidney is about in the end, where she's not only prepared, she brought a gun, she brought a bulletproof vest. She's been training, I think, right? But she's like no longer just, like in the first movie, she was the victim who was kind of scrambling to survive. In the second one, she wanted to move on with her life and had taken some precautions, but ultimately she just wanted to live her life, right? And here she's lived her entire life, like she's built her entire life around the idea of defeating Ghostface when he shows up again. Because now she's sure he will show up again, right? So she's got a loaded gun in her desk. She's got a dog. She's got an alarm system. She's moved into a remote place where it's hard to find her. She lives under an assumed name. The bulletproof vest is something she improvises for, like in the police station, but everything else, like she's been preparing, right? And so she's no longer, and like by the third part, she's actively fighting the villain, right? And that involves not buying into their bullshit anymore.
And but I think you made a good point, but I think she's learning on the go, which was something which I liked. Because I don't necessarily think she was training or planning, but I think because obviously it's like she learned from her mistakes and she learned from the past, which is why I think that was just great the way that they just the way her character developed. And it's nothing, even if she was planning, I don't have an issue with that as well. But I just took it as she's learning from her past mistakes, or she's learning how her past encounters, what happened in those past encounters, and how to pretty much Yeah. So so she was prepared for this one due to the past encounters.
Yeah. So I take back the thing about training. I don't think that's the case. But she had like clearly. I think we can infer that she's been taking marksmanship lessons, right? Like she's probably didn't just buy a gun somewhere. She knows how to use it, right? And it's ready for her, right? I think she even has 2 guns so that when Ghostface makes her discard one, she's got another one at the other ankle or something. Something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, she has
So
done.
point is, by now it's deliberate, and she's got a plan, and she executes that plan, and that involves not buying into the rhetoric anymore. So I think the villain is a joke, and in this one, it's taken to an absurd. Like the first 2 were kind of believable, right? Like you destroyed my family, so now I'm gonna take revenge, and it's the son, it's the mother, right? These are kind of believable circumstances, right? But now we've got this absurd scenario of I am your long lost half brother who you've never heard about, and when I tried to reconnect with your mother, I was rejected and then devoted my entire life to ruining her life and your life through the medium of film and serial killing. Right? It's nonsense. It does not make any sense, except as satire.
But
right?
people,
and that's my interpretation of it.
But people were also saying, I don't know if so. I agree, but I think him making that point was a separate point, because I think at the time what people were saying was during like the early 2000s, violence that was happening they were pretty much blaming movies for the violence that was happening during those times. So that line there, I think he was kind of like addressing that. At the same time, of course, he was addressing the situation he was in terms of why he's doing what he's doing. But I think that was just put in there to kind of like address or play on what people are saying in the times about how violence is the blame. The reason why violence is going on is because pretty much movies is to blame for violence. And also there was another encounter that he had with the CEO or producer where they were talking about, oh no, it wasn't him, it was the producer and Sidney, where he must have said a line about Hollywood's filled with criminals. That's a different point. But what I was gonna say was it seemed
we'll
like
get to that too, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like it was not fillers, but they were trying to address certain things in the wrong time, is what I'm trying to say.
So I don't think it's the wrong time. This happened, I think you might be too young to remember Columbine, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I was like 14 when it happened. And I was living in Germany at the time, right? So far removed from Columbine, far removed from school shootings. I think we've had 2 school shootings in the time I've been alive in Germany. Like they happen, but they're exceedingly rare. But Columbine freaked people out. Like it was so brutal, and the body count was so high. Like it shocked people. And this came out shortly after. I've read something, I don't know if this is true, that this was supposed to be set in a school again, and they changed that in the last minute because of Columbine. I don't know if that lines up time-wise. I think Columbine was 99. I'm not sure.
I might be thinking of a different school shooting, but wasn't that a shooting where they said he was influenced by Marilyn Manson?
That's so people blamed it on all sorts of things. People blamed, like in my environment, my school blamed it on video games because that was the big hot button issue. And other people blamed it on metal music because of how aggressive and violent it is, supposedly, which was also this was like the big music genre for teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Like my friends were all deep into metal and dressed in black and everything, and like it freaked out the normies, shall we say?
Yeah.
Right? Like it was one of those things where like mainstream society kind of did not know what to make of it. And so when something extreme like Columbine happens, they blame it on something they don't like.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's video games, sometimes it's the wrong kind of music, sometimes it's violent movies. And I think this movie is responding to that by having it be a pile of nonsense and by having the hero pointed out. So I think even in the first and second movie, Sidney kind of believed what the villains were saying, right? When the villains explained their big motive, Sidney kind of believed it. Like even if she thought it was reprehensible and monstrous, whatever, she kind of accepted that this is what they were doing, I think. And now she just doesn't buy any of it. She just, this is just an excuse. Like you're a murderer because you want to be. Nobody made you do this. And like this is all on you. And I'm not giving you the out for 1 second. Like you own this, right? That is her big speech. And and then in the next minute she beats the crap out of him, right? Because he's lost all his power, because his nonsense was the only thing he had going for him, right? Like that's that's pretty much the ending, or that's like the big confrontation between Sidney and Ghostface, right? And if we are if he's saying that it's been him all along, then that kind of is the victory over all Ghostfaces, right? It's just like the entire thing falls apart, and it's just a guy with a knife who wants to be important and who wants his feelings to make sense, right? And that's all that's left. And then she beats the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And that's the victory, right? And then the end prize of that is that she's no longer afraid, right? Like the reason I'm not really interested in Screams 4 and onwards is because I think this ending is perfect. Like I've said before that I think endings are really important. Like a movie with a bad ending is like a joke without a punchline, right? And if you mess up your ending, it's like messing up the punchline to a joke. It just ruins the entire thing, right? Like again, Game of Thrones, 7 seasons of mysteries and build-up, and 1 season of nonsense destroys all 8 seasons, right? Because without the answer, the question is meaningless, right? So if you have a story that, like, this is especially true for stories that are built around questions. If the answer never comes, or if the answer is nonsense, then the entire thing falls apart. So for that reason, I think endings are really important, and it baffles my mind that so many writers don't seem to think so, that they don't seem to craft their stories around leading up to the ending, which is supposed to be the point. You know, there's like with a TV show, like you never know how many seasons you're going to get and stuff like that. But with a movie, I don't think there's an excuse, other than the production process is just messed up, where you like nobody can work properly because you're constantly dodging wrenches that are being thrown at you, right? So for that reason, I think endings are important, and most movies are bogged down, if not outright ruined, by bad endings. And so when a movie comes along that has a pitch perfect ending, where Sidney, who has lived has lived the last 4 years or whatever it is, like in fear, and every move she's made is trying to stay 2 steps ahead of the next psycho who wants to kill her, and trying to kind of live her life as best she could, while at the same time kind of controlling, like she never lets her guard down, she never takes any risks, she never, like especially in 2 and 3, like she never does anything that could make her vulnerable. And now she not only can enjoy a scary movie with friends, but when the door kind of swings open again, she's okay. It's okay. It's safe. There's nothing bad lurking in the bushes, right? Because the bad guy is gone. And that is kind of symbolic of her having overcome her issues of these experiences, right? It's dominated her life for 4 years, and now it's done. It's over. She's won. The danger is gone. She can relax. Fade to black. Perfect ending. Right? And that is why I don't think any further, that's why I have such high expectations for further Scream movies, is that's what you have to follow up. Right? You have to continue on from that. Like even if you're leaving, like saying, okay, Sidney Prescott's story is over. Now we're telling another story with similar themes and sensibilities, and still Scream, but it's now somebody else's story because the first one is finished. But you have to follow up this perfect ending. That is just, it does everything it needs to. It says what it needs to. It makes sense. It's satisfying. There's no improving it.
I'm going to have to, you know what? One of us say the contradiction, because I did say I did enjoy 5 and 6, and I don't mind that, you know, it's evolved into something else. However, your point is valid, and I actually do agree. Like the way that it ended, especially when the door opened, to me, I said, okay, she's free from her trauma now. She's actually going to live her life, which was a great ending. I do agree with that. That was a great ending. And it's just like, for me, like I said, I don't necessarily have an issue with the way that it's evolved, that there's more focus on who the killer now is, rather than that, you know, the whole play on the horror genre, and like, you know, I don't have an issue with that. However, if they did continue that with a different character story, then that would have been it probably would have been better than the Scream 4, 5, and 6, because, you know, they could even mix the two in terms of like what's driving the film, in terms of like, okay, so now people are emotionally invested in who the killer is, and they're trying to figure out who the killer is. But at the same time, you can still mix it in with the whole, the horror movie tropes and like kind of like playing on all of that and stuff. So I do agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. And it's a reflection. It's a reflection of what the film industry currently is like when it comes to writing. Is it still the same? It's not the same, right? Is it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, so that probably makes sense. If it's not the
I
same,
think it's now turned into an asset where it's like, okay, we own the rights to this, and we own the rights to the Ghostface killer, so we should make some movies to monetize it. That's how it comes across to me. It does not, like the first Scream trilogy was also really improvised. Like they were doing rewrites on set, and there were like for the second one there were these online leaks that meant they had to retool the movie in parts. And like it's not like this masterpiece like Wes Craven sat down and wrote like 3 perfect scripts and they shot those scripts and those are the movies, right? Like there was a lot of accident and improvisation, but it's held together by intention and thought, right? Like I'm open to the idea that actually 4, 5, and 6 are like this and have just not been told. And if they are, like if you're a fan of the later Scream movies, let us know in the comments why they live up to this legacy. But they just don't seem to. They seem to be, let's make another one because the last one made money. And that I'm just not all that interested in. The first Scream trilogy has all these interesting ideas. And it's like this perfect convergence of time and place and talent and execution. And it all just comes together. And I can have the box set on my shelf and it's a complete story. And there are not many of those in movies or like in fiction in general that are like this, and that's kind of why, like, I'm not against the new movies. I'm just indifferent, right? And so if there are good reasons out there for why they are good in a similar way, then I'm all open to hearing that.
I'm intrigued to see. Let me check. Sorry, I'm intrigued. I don't know if it's 6 or 7, but I'm sure there's another one coming out, and I'm
7 is supposedly in production.
Is in production. I think they're bringing back. I heard something about how they're bringing back the old ones.
But it seems a bit like they're bringing back the old characters because of member berries, not because they have a story to tell for those characters. And that even further lowers my interest. I just present me with a cool idea for what to do with a Scream movie, and I pay attention. And it just has not seemed that way. One of the things that people really dislike about this movie, so for a lot of people, Scream 3 is the worst one. And I think like there are some recurring complaints. One of them is Courtney Cox's haircut, and I can see where people are coming from. But I think the more important ones are like the voice changer. That is just one step too far. And I can kind of see where people are coming from, which is that it can not only mimic some voices that the killer has a reason for having, it can copy any voice. And apparently it even can copy voices of characters. Like there's like Sidney at one point hears like lines from Stu and other characters from the first movie, where Roman has no way of having overheard that. I don't think so. And it's a little bit muddy, like what is in her head and what Roman does, like to mess with her. And that by itself is a flaw, where it's really convenient that she has these nightmares that happen to exactly line up with Roman's theatrics. Like how would he know? Like, is that just a coincidence? Yeah. And if it's just a coincidence, it's kind of lame. And like this whole thing about sometimes she sees her mother in her dreams, but also Roman kind of pretends to be the mother haunting her, and it's just too convenient that it all lines up, right? And I don't think it works. I don't think it makes sense. And like the voice thing is just one step too far. Like ironically, it's become realistic in the last year or two, where you can actually clone voices with AI deepfakes.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like you can, like there's like services where you can kind of say a few words and it will analyze your voice and then it will use your voice to speak, like to do text to speech and stuff like that. So, but that's been gotten possible in the past year, right? So this did not exist in 2000. In 2000, this was science fiction, and that has just not been the style of the trilogy up to that point. Right? Like if it was the case that he has like 3 voices and there's like a reason for, and we see him acquiring those voices, or it's obvious how he acquired those voices, maybe he has like he has an idea. Like what if he has the voices of people who have been giving interviews? like Cotton and Gale and people like that, like people who seek out the limelight and so have been talking in front of microphones for hours and hours. And stealing that voice might actually be fairly easy, right?
But I know,
but he has everybody's voice.
I know, Phil. Okay, I get that, you know, Scream has a rule, but can't they bend the rule sometimes? Because I will agree, it was ridiculous, but it wasn't ridiculous to the point that ruined my experience. I just thought, okay,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous and it's not really realistic. It would be realistic now, because I have seen obviously like AI like make music of deceased rappers and it'll be like a new song. Obviously they'll take their voice.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
20 years later.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, right, you're right. But like sometimes, because this is still a movie at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? It's one imagination and they want to see something like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, can't they bend the rules sometimes? Like where this you see something that's like just outrageous, you know what I'm saying? Does it always have to be strict?
I mean, that's taste, right? And I think I can see where people are coming from when they say, I think this is a step too far. And like all I really wanted is like, give me a reason for why these voices.
Yeah.
And like he's limited to like 3 voices or 4 voices or something.
But the reason of perception, that's not enough for you.
Yeah, I mean, like that's still powerful, right? But then like there's a logic to it, and it's not magic, right? Like he just has every voice with perfect precision. Yeah. Like what if he had to, like if he could only use words that were spoken in one of the previous 3 movies, like in public, like to reporters or something, and every word is kind of pieced together from a public appearance, and characters that have been seeking out publicity have made it easier, right? So and maybe that's why Sidney, like because she's been forced to give these interviews and whatever, more or less, like she never sought out fame, right? But she's given interviews and whatever, right? Even if just to get the reporters off her back or something. And what if that comes back? Like with this movie has this whole theme of the past coming back to haunt you, right? So what if that was one way in which the past comes back to haunt you? Is that everything you've said into a microphone is now a weapon in the hands of Ghostface?
Yeah.
Like that would at least be cool. Like these movies have always had some fake outs, right? But that's like there was always some point behind it or some thought behind it in terms of how that was constructed. And here it's just like when you're talking to somebody on the phone, it could be like anybody could be Ghostface. So it's just not all that interesting. It doesn't make anything interesting happen. And especially the first movie was very meticulous about the logistics of how Ghostface kills, right? Like where Ghostface is and how quickly he can move and stuff like that, right? And there was this whole thing about he seems to be in 2 places at once, and that's because it's 2 guys, right? So like the first movie, like I've even seen like breakdowns of like one of the killers, you can tell which killer is which in the first movie because one of them holds the knife in one way and the other holds the knife the other way, and the movie is really planned out to make sure that all checks out, right? So I think movies are made better by paying attention to details like this, and this movie kind of asks you to just hand wave it, and I can see the complaint, absolutely. I think the movie just works on the level of past coming back to haunt you. It's this whole thing about old Hollywood and Maureen Prescott and all of these things from the past coming back, right? And that then kind of feeds into this idea of like what our mother did like 30 years ago, whatever, whenever, defines us today. And that's my deep villain motivation that you're supposed to feel sad for. And that's kind of the point of the movie, that's nonsense, right? So that all comes together in, I think, in interesting ways. And because of that, I like the movie, like this whole thing of uncovering Maureen Prescott's past and piecing together what her life was really like, as opposed to the stories that have been told about her and stuff like that. That's all interesting. And like Ghostface having the magic voice changer does not aid in that, right? Like it's something you kind of have to sit through in order to get to the cool parts again. I think that's a valid criticism of this movie, I think. And I just don't think it breaks or it pulls down the movie enough that it turns into a bad one, because it's pretty easy to kind of ignore or see past, at least for me.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that criticism at all. I just think sometimes, because I see people are so like, they're just unwilling to change or kind of like give leeway when it comes to like, you know, what, like I said, like the rule of a film, right? So a film will have one rule or there's something which they kind of like banked on or just was their main theme or was their main point, right? And it's something which sometimes I feel like you can kind of like just, not steer away from it, but if you do steer away from it, you'll end up coming back. And I think obviously that was one of them where they kind of steered away from the whole, from their main selling point, and then but they still ended up going back, which not really, because even though there was no need for that, and it was number one, very unrealistic, and it had no kind of like it added nothing to the story, if that makes sense. It was just something which was in there to make, because I think they probably thought it just looked cool. So I get that, but at the same time, I just think, sometimes
I think it's a fake out, right? It's the same thing with the never-ending jump scares that are never Ghostface.
Yeah.
Right? Like people just walk into frame and everybody's whoa.
Yeah,
right? Like the 10th time it happened, it started to be funny.
Yeah.
And I really hate jump scares in horror movies, and so this movie making fun of them was very cathartic.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
It just happens so much.
And this one's like
there's one scene where I don't remember who it is, but somebody just walks in from out of frame, and everybody's like, it's a jump scare. But the characters should have seen that character.
Yeah.
Right? Because they were looking like when they were in the same room. They should not have started, but that's still a jump scare. And like at that point, it just got stupid, and I greatly enjoyed that. To your point of like the third part in the trilogy breaking the rules, I think that's fine, but you still need to be within earshot of the identity of the story, right? It can't be something completely different, right? It has to be kind of like a riff on what came before, right? And like a good way of doing this is like the opening sequence, right, where we see the familiar pattern of how we open a Scream movie, but then we kind of play with it because now it's Cotton getting the phone call and essentially being told, I'm going to kill your girlfriend, and there's nothing you can do about it because like I'm right there and you're 10 minutes away, whatever, right? Like that's a fun twist, right? Like that's playing with the formula. Just throwing out the rules altogether, I don't think it's that interesting. And also, not everything you substitute the rules with is automatically good, right? Like you can substitute with something worse, and that's still a worse movie. Like if you change the rules, you have to change them to something better, right? And I don't think that especially the magic voice changer does that. I think it just makes the whole thing lamer, because now, like before, it was like you could there still was logistics involved, right? Like if it was a fake out about who Ghostface was, that person still had an alibi, and like that person still had to be in a place, and like in Scream 1 we could trust that nobody could teleport, right? And now if anybody you talk to could be Ghostface with a voice changer, is that more interesting? I don't think so. But yeah, it's not the main point of the movie, and like who Ghostface is and who he picks to kill and stuff like that. And this whole thing about killing in sequence of the script, but we don't know what the sequence is because there have been so many rewrites. Like that's fun. That's fine. It's kind of filler in the sense that it doesn't really lead to the conclusion. It's just like the scaffolding that holds together like a Scream movie, right? Like these things have to happen so that the main characters can do their investigation and can try to figure out what's going on until we get to the end, right? To the last 15 minutes. When you break the rules, you have to actually provide something better. Right? Yeah. Is my take.
No, I can agree on that.
All right, we're beginning to run out of time. Any other thoughts on Scream 3?
I do have last thoughts, but I don't have any other thing. I don't have anything else to mention besides, hey man, this was it was a good film. I disagree that this was one of the worst ones, but I can see why people would feel that way. But yeah, I do think this, like you said, the ending was definitely the cherry on the top. It was a good ending. But overall, like I said, Scream, even though I call it a popcorn movie, so it's a movie that's not great, but it's a movie that's not bad. For me, it's just like good fun movie. It's a traditional good fun movie. So I'd say I can see it as being a traditional film that I would see here and there. Well, like I wouldn't say each, but definitely more than once. Even though I did say I wouldn't say it more than once. I think I said that in my previous, I don't know which Scream it was, but I think I said I don't know which one it was, but I'm slowly starting to convince myself that, okay, I would see this more than once again, especially if it came on TV and I'm with my friends or something. I definitely would enjoy it as well. So like I said, it's not a great film, but it's definitely a fun one. It's definitely a fun one.
Yeah. I think it's a great movie. The entire trilogy is. And this is one of the few trilogies, trilogy has basically become a marketing term where just make 3 movies and it's a trilogy. And this is actually a trilogy because of Sidney's character arc, where she starts off, where she ends up. That's a complete story. And that's why it's not just 3 movies with the same characters. It's actually a trilogy. And those are pretty rare, right? You can probably count them on 3 hands or something. And for that reason, this is the Scream story for me. Like the others might be good too. Maybe I come around to them one day, but this is the Scream story. So that's my bottom line on Scream 3.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. If you liked what you saw, share, like, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you saw, then Daniel, what's that thing that Hervé usually says?
If you like this, tell a friend. If you hated this, tell an enemy.
Yeah, there it is. You heard it first. All right, guys, we'll catch you next week. Au revoir.
Ciao.